Hi, I'm Jenn Drummond. Welcome to Seek Your Summit. As a mom, a business owner, and the first female to climb the 7-second summits, I realize that the mountains we climb are a part of our success. And it is up to us to go beyond that success into a life of significance. All right, everyone. Today, I have a friend on the podcast named Jimmy Rex. I learned about Jimmy Rex almost when I first moved to Utah. He's got quite the reputation, and today you get to learn all about him. So enjoy. How fun is that?
You never know what people hear about you, so it's kind of a fun way to start the podcast.
It is. You had a good reputation.
I believe so. I always, even though, because I was out there and I'm willing to be first, I'm curious, I'll try some things, whatever. But I always care about people. And so I never would manipulate myself into a situation or things like that. Like I've been an asshole, but like I went in being the asshole. You know what I mean?
Like colors show.
Yeah, like people are okay with that, It's like, look, they still left smiling. You know what I mean? Like you want to keep it on the up and up.
The real and real.
Yeah.
All right, I read your book.
Thank you.
You won.
Wow, thank you.
Yes, it was good.
Thank you. What any takeaways?
When I'm in a stage, don't call to be first so that I can be the best dancer up on stage. I love that story.
Oh my gosh.
You can share that with the audience because they don't know it.
Yeah, I'll share it real quick. Well, it was funny because one of the things I think that's important is we have to be able to be self-aware and we have to be able to laugh at ourselves. And so this particular experience in the book, what I was talking about is I had been studying how to be more attractive and how to be more masculine. And I had this world-class mentor. Seriously, this guy's
I'm sitting next to you wondering what feminine looked like on you. I mean, really? You had to be more masculine?
No, back then I learned how to do that though. Okay. So I used to stand wrong. I would stand with my legs crossed. I used to talk wrong. I used to dress wrong. Seriously. Really? I learned, you can learn these things. And so I didn't understand. I was also very needy, which is a very feminine trait. I didn't understand. And I wasn't sure of myself. And so was always, just very needy, just very poor energy in a lot of areas. And so I knew I needed to work on it. So I hired somebody to kind of teach me. And basically I just had a buddy that he just emulated masculinity. I'm like, what the hell do you do? And he's like, well, here's a couple of things. One is like, quit caring so damn much what anybody else thinks, right? And then it was just kind of little by little, he started teaching me some things. And one of the things he taught me was when you're dancing, because we'd go dancing and I'd just be the guy trying to have like a dancing monkey, right? You're flying around everywhere and ripping your shirt off, just whatever.
I'm thinking of that movie Hitch, right? Where it's like, stay in the box.
100%. You're actually right. Yeah. I mean, Hitch actually covers a lot of this pretty well, the movie. And same thing. He's like, you vibe with the music. You don't actually go, you're not throwing your body everywhere. Your legs should probably not move. Your feet should probably stay where they're planted as a guy. And then just let women dance with you and dance on you. And then that's a very masculine way to dance. And so I go to this Tony Robbins event, this 8 years ago, his Date with Destiny event. And you got 4,000 people there, right? And so Tony is teaching the difference between feminine and masculine. And he says, we want to show women what it looks like to be in your feminine. So he says, I need 30 women to come on the stage. You're going to dance, and whoever is the most feminine, we're going to cheer the loudest for, and we're going to see who dances the most feminine. So he has these women come up, and you can tell some of them have no idea how to get into their feminine, but some are just so beautiful. When you see a woman in her feminine dancing, there's nothing more beautiful on the planet.
Right.
And these women are just going for it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And so, of course, they get the loudest cheer. He's like, sends them down. Okay. They pick the winner. So he says, all right, now I need 30 men to come up and dance the most masculine. And I'm thinking to myself, I know how to do this. I'm going to win.
I'm trained.
Yeah. So I go up like a dumbass and I just do my thing, right? Exactly like I'd learned, like I'd practiced.
I really wish we could do this right now and show everybody. So it's in our minds.
Perfect. And I got one of the 2 or 3 out of 30 guys' loudest cheers. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to win. I'm going to get that. I'm totally just like convinced he's going to pick me. And he goes, all right, so which of these men was the most masculine? And then he goes, I'll give you the answer. It's none of them. Because a masculine man would never come on a stage and try to impress a bunch of random strangers. And I was like, oh my hell. It was such a perfect moment. I was like, he got me so good. I just put my head down and went to my seat. I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But it was so perfect. I couldn't even be mad.
Yeah. Right. Isn't that awesome? It was
perfection. It was great. I just loved it. I was like, what a perfect.
And then how did that feel the rest of the experience? You're fine, owned it.
Yeah, no. I was by myself there anyway, and I was getting so many takeaways. I was having so many breakthroughs that day and that week, and so it was just another one. I was just like, wait, Jimmy, why do you do this? Why do you go try to impress a bunch of random strangers? Why was I so convinced I needed to win that? What was I going to get out of that? Why was I trying to impress
feels so
these
good.
stupid people, right? And we get in so much trouble in life. I tell you, it's my number one piece of investing advice to people is like every time I got in trouble investing is when I was trying to impress people that I didn't even know. I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to pretend like I didn't understand the deal. So I just look at these spreadsheets or this waterfall or whatever it might have been, a business plan, pretending like I understood the thing when I didn't.
Yeah.
It actually saved me this last go around when like NFTs became really popular. All my friends were buying them and into them. And I'm friends with all these guys that were literally on the forefront of NFTs. And I don't get it, but I was very willing to say, I can't buy into this because I don't understand it. I don't see how these have value still. And I have people explain it to me 10 times. I'm like, yeah, but I don't see why that's any different than a photo still. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And I was right. My instincts told me, and eventually they all lost whatever money they had in NFTs. And so my point of that is whether they become something later, the way it was first came out, they had no value. And so anyway, I think we get in a lot of trouble in life when we try to impress people one way or another. I mean, you see this with the internet nowadays, right? Like, I think one of the biggest issues with social media right now is what used to be, we've mistaken what has attention for what has value. Mm-hmm. And so whatever gets the most attention is what people are focusing on. It seems like that's success, and it's not. And it's really screwing a lot of people up.
Oh, no, it's interesting because I have somebody that helps review the posts that I'm going to put up. And they're always trying to change the hook. Because, this hook will hook more people. I'm like, I don't care. It's not authentic. I'd rather not hook the people that it hooks and let my message be what it is, and it will attract who it needs to attract. But it's hard to stay in that space and be like, okay, this is right for me. This is right for me. This is right for me.
Yeah, when I first started TikTok, my first week,
I need to find your TikTok.
I once sunk a houseboat at Lake Powell.
Oh,
and
yes,
so
I read about this
my
too.
first week on TikTok, my first 4 posts, 3 of them went over 10 million views. I mean, it was a crazy. Like, I had 80,000 followers on TikTok before I even looked at my page. It was nuts. But the guy that I hired to do it for me, he was good at cutting up the videos. And one of the hooks, so I love sharks. I have a shark tattoo. I'm a total.
I love sharks too. Did you swim with them in Hawaii?
I did. Well, I've swum with them in Hawaii and in Tiger
I've swum
Beach.
with them everywhere.
Yeah. So I swam with this giant tiger shark with no cage. It's like one of the most spiritual moments of my life. And I really am big on authenticity. And so the guy that was doing my TikTok, he said, send me all your videos that are interesting and I'll post them for you. And he put one up of me with the tiger shark swimming, and he wrote on there, he's like, this giant great white is trying to get me. And I was like, yo, dude, that's not a great white. That's a tiger shark. I told you. He goes, yeah, but people are going to comment and correct you now. It's going to cause engagement and everything else. I'm like, no, this isn't. What are we even talking about? Like,
I mean, it's still cool. I swam with a tiger shark.
I literally fired him after a month because I'm like, I feel like I was being inauthentic, and I was looking like an idiot,
And tiger sharks eat people, and they're just as bad.
They can be.
Yes, they can be. I mean, in Maui, when you go kiteboarding, there's a guy that got eaten by a tiger shark.
I know, but it's not the tiger shark's fault. They actually replenished their entire food supply, and the sharks get hungry.
So we're snacks. I get it. We're in their territory.
Yeah, they don't. Well, they don't even like eating humans. They either have to be starving or confused to eat a human.
Okay.
I'm a total shark. Like I said, I'm over here defending the sharks.
I like sharks. No, it's fair. It's fair. Okay, but let's talk about how you ended up at a Tony Robbins event.
In that particular, it was interesting. I've always been on this path of just trying to become a better version of myself. I was lucky enough that I loved reading as a young kid.
Okay.
And so that was kind of, I think, what started that. And then I went on a Mormon mission for 2 years. And in that, you have structure and a lot of training, and you're just trying to be better. I mean, you're just trying to get better at what you're doing. You have to learn Spanish and do all these other things. And so I got home, I started in real estate. And one of my first things, about 6 months into being a real estate agent, I stumbled across this real estate coach, and I didn't know it at the time, but he is the GOAT. His name's Mike Ferry. And I signed up for this program. And my first 6 months as a realtor, I sold 3 or 4 houses. My next 6 months, I finished that year with 60 homes sold.
What?
Oh yeah, it just went nuts.
So you took the program and worked.
Oh yeah, 100% all in, and it changed my life. And Mike was just a G, and he was, he had studied with some of the greats, Jim Rohn and some of these other guys, Earl Nightingale, and so those were his mentors. So he was just pushing down the same. I mean, it's the same, the movie The Secret. Yep. It's basically all the same information. There's just different ways to package it. And that's basically all of the really good self-development that's out there. It's just packaged, the same messaging is packaged in a way that you receive it and understand it. And so, but Mike really got me on this mission to do that. And then he would talk about Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins. And so I started, reading their books and getting their audio CDs. There's actually an advantage I had back then that the kids nowadays don't have, or people don't have nowadays. There's so much noise right now. Yeah. So many people that are, hell, this podcast is noise. My podcast is noise. A lot of the times they're great, but sometimes they're not. There's just a lot out there. When I was coming up, I had basically 5 CDs. I had Zig Ziglar, I had Robert Kiyosaki, I had Tony Robbins, I had Jim Rohn, and I had, that's about it. And so I just listened to the same ones over and over again. And really, I think so many times we want to go wide with everything we're learning, when what we really need is to go deep and get really clear on one message. So I just listened to Tony over and over. And eventually I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I need a personal coach. And I called and hired Tony Robbins, his organization, got a coach. And then, after I was been with my coach for about 6 months, she's like, you really need to go to this Date with Destiny event. And so that was how I ended up at that event. Okay.
And then let's talk about coaches, because I think that's interesting that you hired a coach. Do you still have a coach?
Oh yeah. So last year, every year I kind of have these different themes that I'm trying to work on. Okay. So this year my theme is presence. Really trying to just be. We talked about this a little bit on the podcast we did with you on my podcast, the Jimmy Rex Show. For somebody like you and I, it's very easy to do more. It's very easy. Much fun. I've never needed to be motivated. I'm just am motivated, right? Yep. For me, the trick is to do less, to just sit and be silent and just be still and not be doing anything. And so last year, my big theme, I really wanted to focus on this relationship piece. Like I've been all over the place in dating for over 40 years now. I mean, just call it what it is. And so I was like, I need to figure some things out. And so I said, who's the best in the world? And this is where coaches are so valuable, because I believe they compress time. You can basically, here's what I say. Anytime I hire a coach, I say, who is where I want to be that used to be where I'm at? Mm-hmm. And so there was 3 guys to me that stood out as I'd been following all these different people online, and they all had different things. So one of them is Neil Strauss. He wrote the book, The Game, which was not his best. He ended up coming out with a book 10 years later called The Truth, basically calling himself out on all the bullshit, which was the game. But he's brilliant. And the way that he was able to change from this guy that was just trying to play the game, dating, to like really figuring out how to live in a beautiful state that way. So I hired him. Mm-hmm. Ed Milet, as far as what I'm trying to do with my program, with my platform, with all the things I do, Ed's the guy that I kind of look up to the most. And so I hired him as my one-on-one coach last year. He ended up doing the forward for my book that you read and everything. He's just such a great human being, and so grateful for him. And then the third person, there's a relationship coach specifically. His name's Stefanos Safondos. And
I follow him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
Yes, his like artwork on Instagram.
Yep.
I'm like,
So when you hear people like him, you just go, oh, that's truth. Like, I think you recognize truth when you hear it. And so I kept watching him, and I'm like, okay, this dude gets it. So I hired him as well, one-on-one. Yeah. And so in that, I was able to discover some things about myself and my dating life and how I function. Even this morning, I had a call with my coach. So I have a coach right now. It's this woman, and she's a 70-year-old lady from Canada. She's hilarious. Yeah. And she asked me something. It was very fascinating. Because she said, Jimmy, she said, I'll just be a little vulnerable here, but she was like, every area of your life has been working except for your dating relationship. And she said, what do you do different there that you don't do everywhere else? She goes, I know. Let's see if you know. And I wasn't really getting it at first. And she said, in every other area of your life, she said, you look to create value for others. You look to give. She said, in your dating relationships, you're always asking, what can I get from this? And that's why they don't work. I was like, shit, that was this morning. And so
Are
I'm
you
like,
still metabolizing that right now?
oh,
I can imagine.
I'm like, hold on, I need to go make some notes here. I was like, totally. I was just like mind blown. I was like, damn, that's so good.
Oh, and somebody can synthesize something like that for us.
Right.
To let us hit it home.
And then I said, well, why do I do that? And she said, well, and we started, I mean, this was an hour conversation, but basically when I was a kid, there was some things that I was trying to do for safety and for certainty, like to feel, and she said, well, you believe that if you date this way, it gives you a false sense of safety and value or whatever else. And she's like, it's fleeting though. That's why your relationships are fleeting, because it's not coming from an internal source. And I'm just like, damn, this was a banger today. So it's just a really good coaching session, but like one person helps you see a blind spot or see a lens. And I know that instinctively when she said it, I was like, damn, yeah, she's right. And so I started thinking like, okay, so what I need to become obsessed with now or really focus on is, all right, where can I give in these dating relationships instead of focusing on what I'm getting? And why do I do that differently in these dating relationships as opposed to every other relationship in my life? And so, because all my other relationships work really well, it's because I'm giving, I'm not trying to get.
Yeah.
So that's coaching right there.
Coaching in a nutshell. Yeah. All those little things that we get to take and then implement and then go. So it's interesting because you have coaches for specific areas. And then do you keep them for a year and decide if you want to move on or hire somebody else or continue? Or how do you decide when you've outgrown a coach?
I think it's important to have the discussion up front. I always tell my coaches, look, I want to do a 1-year coaching program. At the end of that year, we will decide. It won't be based on whether I like you, whether this is working, whatever else. Because sometimes you get too friendly with a coach,
it's hard.
And it becomes a little bit of a different relationship. They don't get to challenge you the same. Yeah. So like my coaching program, it's more group, but it's a 2-year program. And so at the end of a year, because there's so many moving pieces, you really need the 2 years. It was originally a 2.5-year program. I moved it to 2 years, but like you really, you have that first year. And then I think it's really important to have an honest conversation where you decide if you're going to re-up for another year so that you don't have to feel pressure to do it. You're like, I don't want to offend my friend or whatever else. Like you just, if there's more there, then you go for it.
Yeah, you just keep it isolated as that this is what I'm trying to get out of this. Has nothing to do with any of the other pieces and go from there. And I do like the value of that too. I think of my kids when they went to Montessori preschool. I know this is so funny, but that first, they keep kids in multiple years in the same classroom. And the reason why is because you learn it from your peer and then you teach it to your peer. Yeah. And so it gives you that time to like embody it and then also be able to give it back.
Well, I've had 100 guys go through my program and finish it or almost finish it at this point, and most of them had their biggest breakthroughs in year 2. Yeah. So I can look at it now and I know that it needs to be 2 years. That being said, there's guys that only did it for a year, and one of them hit me up the other day. It was really cool. He only went a year of the program, but he hit me up and he said, hey, I'm having a really hard time connecting with my wife. I was wondering if we can have a conversation. I know I'm not in your group anymore. I said, of course. And so we actually have a call set up for later tonight. But, it's being able to you want to make sure you have a coach that you trust that they know what they're doing. And you got to go off performance. Like, do the people that are in the program love it? Is it working for them? The people that are being coached by them, do they seem to be doing better as humans? I mean, my best billboard for my coaching program is all the guys that have been through it. Like 99% of my referrals is how I fill my program from the other guys, because people see the difference they're making, right? And then also you want to just say, wait, why is this person qualified to teach this thing? So like for me, part of the reason I hired all those relationship coaches is because I'm like, shit, I got to teach these guys in my program, and I've never been married. I don't know what to teach them. And so I hired those coaches, but I also actually hired Tony Robbins for his platinum program, which is $100,000 a year. I did that because last October I got to go to his relationship week-long seminar in Maui. So I spent 60 straight hours just learning about relationships. So I took everything I learned there, I bring it back to my guys, and I go, guys, this isn't my stuff.
Right.
So I was literally taking 3 sets of notes. I was taking notes for myself. Yep. I was taking notes on what to teach the guys. And then I was taking notes on how to run the seminar. So it was like, I had, a triple take getting this out of this. But because that information was so good, I can share that information with the guys I coach, and they're getting a ton out of that. They don't have to spend the $100,000. They just get it as part of being part of my group.
Now I read, your group is We Are the They, which started because like you were working with OAR.
OUR.
OUR, and then came back and you're like, hey, I need to help these people. And she's like, why does it have to be you? And you're like, because we are the they. And then you might want to fill in the blanks there.
Yeah, well, long story short, I was on an op that was, I had the chance to do I think I did 13 ops undercover. This is our probably most dangerous one. And when I came back, my girlfriend at the time picked me up from the airport, and I'm telling her the story and the rescue, and it's pretty dramatic. This was actually a pretty scary one. And she pulls over and she's like, hey, I actually don't want you to do this anymore. I was like, what are you talking about? You're not just here for my story. It's going to be part of my life's mission now. And she goes, I know, but it's like a super bad environment. It's, it's scary. It's dangerous. I was like, I know, but like, we just did this rescue. And she goes, well, why can't they just go do it? And without thinking, I said, there is no they. Like, we are the they. And when I said that, it literally shot shivers down my spine. I was just like, I was like, damn. And so that became a motto for my life. I got it tattooed on my arm. And so anyway, when I started my program, that became the easy name to call it.
Mm-hmm. And you do men, but I feel like there's a women's group and a kids group or something too.
I have the men's group. It's funny, the women's group, I've actually brought in some other, when I started it, one of the problems with coaching is if one partner is doing it and the rest aren't, they grow apart. Right. And I very quickly recognized this. So I launched this women's group as kind of a sister program. I brought in my old coach. I had a coach, my original coach with Tony Robbins. I had her for 8 years. I brought her in to run what's called the Queens Group. And then since then, there's a couple other coaching programs that have popped up, some close friends of mine. So I refer a lot of people to them. And so more and more, I'm focusing more on the men. And then it was actually Ed Milet who told me, he said, Jimmy, he said, nobody's willing to do these coaching groups for kids. And that's who needs it the most. He goes, look, the reason why is there's no money in it. He goes, you won't make any money. He goes, but you need to do it. And so it's funny because I think we had the most amazing first year, but I did lose money on it. It's just like, you can only charge so much for 15, 16-year-old kids. But I got this guy, Mo, who's just salt of the earth, greatest guy in the world. He used to run a group in Dallas called the Adaptive Training Foundation. They take former military people that have lost limbs in the war and they teach them how to find purpose through wakeboarding and running and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. We did that with them. That's where I basically met them.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah,
yes.
So this guy Mo, he's the one that runs this kids program. He just got married last year. And he's just an amazing human. And so he literally sends out every single kid in the program. He sends them an individual text every single day with his gratitude list and gets one back from them just to start their day. Every single kid. It's really, really cool. So that's why we have the kids program. But my focus really is, mostly with the men.
Okay. How many years are you into it?
2.5.
2.5?
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's growing
Holy
big.
cow.
It's interesting because when I launched it, I just hoped I'd be able to get 50 people to join. And I had no idea the need
There's a
out
huge
there.
need.
I had 147 people apply in the first 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
What do you attest that to?
The need.
Need.
Men are more lonely than ever. One thing I've learned, in 2024 is it's really difficult for a lot of people to find true friendship. Everybody's wearing masks. Everybody's, we live in this world that's almost not real anymore. Everything's what people want you to see. And so for men, they don't get to trust the love they're getting because they start thinking to themselves, well, if they knew who I really was, they wouldn't love me. And it's very rare to find a group or a place where you can just be. Mm-hmm. And nothing is more valuable to a man than being seen for who you are and being loved in that state and just not being judged, and having respect of your peers, even though you're less than perfect. And they understand that, like a man of integrity, we talk about that word a lot. It's not a guy that doesn't make mistakes. It's a guy that's willing to look at himself and go, yeah, I'm still making these mistakes and I'm going to fix them. Right. And it's constantly just, getting back on track. And so I think what has been really attractive about my group is we really focus on those things. We go to the core of what people are dealing with as opposed to just what's kind of on the surface.
And how do you get them to the core? Because it's hard to peel back that veneer.
Yeah, so I actually it was funny because the hardest part of my whole program was trying to explain it to people, why it was different and what we really are doing. Oh. And so I made a documentary. You should watch it. I'll plug it here real quick so people can see. But it's wattvid.com. So it's WATTVID.com. Okay. And it's about an hour and 10 minutes. But we take people through my first weekend with the guys, and I show them exactly what I do to get them vulnerable. And so one of the things, I can explain it a little bit, but if you really want to understand it, watch that video. But, we can't change anybody in this life. Our only job is to create a container safe enough for them to be inspired to want to change themselves. And so that's what we try to do really well. So I do that a couple of ways. So how do you do that? Well, number one is I go first. I'm always willing to show them, and people are like, damn, this guy is not afraid to because I'm not putting myself above them. I'm not putting myself below them. I'm just saying, hey guys.
You were dancing on Tony Robbins' stage. You're not afraid to get out there.
No, you're right.
So
and so I'll talk about some of the things in my own story that aren't so pretty and things I'm doing. And a lot of people, they'll have this false vulnerability. I almost killed myself. I had the gun in my hand, blah, blah. That's not me. I'm like, guys, I just did it with you. I was like, well, this is something that my coach just taught me that I realized, I just admitted that I'm selfish in my dating life. And that's why I keep screwing it up. That's happened today, right? I'm not, and that's real vulnerability. I'm like, yeah, I got problems and I'm working on them. I'm like, shit, I need to get better at this. And I think one of the things of vulnerability is sharing what's going on with you now. And so I'm always sharing with the guys. If I have something happen that is less than, how you would want it to be, I'll share those things. And they're constantly I can actually trust this guy. He's not, right. There's no judgment there. You're allowed to just be. And we do a couple exercises that I learned that are really powerful. And in those exercises, you really get to be seen. A lot of these guys will be seen for the first time and they get loved in that state. And so they're very wanting and willing to open up in that scenario.
And you just took a group, right, to South Africa?
I just took, so we do these, it's one of the things that when I was trying to decide how to do a coaching program, I kind of felt like an imposter. I'm like, well, how am I going to tell these other people, it was how to live or whatever. And the one thing I knew I'm pretty good at, I'm really good at is I know how to help men connect and become friends. Okay. As I've done this with all my friend groups over the years.
So natural skill.
Yeah, it's just something that, I always put my friends before my relationships. That's part of it. And so it's I learned, so you just learn a lot of different things. Exactly. But I did learn how to connect deeply with men and how to help them connect deeply. And so I was like, oh, I can just teach that. And so a big part of my program is helping these men form community and form friendship. And one of the quickest ways to form, one of the things I've learned is one of the quickest ways to form a deep friendship is you have to get away and go experience high emotional experiences together. So just this last week, went to Africa. We are doing a safari out in the bush and we run across rhinos and lions and hyenas, elephants, all these crazy experiences, right? And then I had them jump off bungee jump. I had them do the rope swings, a couple 100-foot drop. We did the zip line across this gorge, is kind of crazy. And it's all in Africa, so it's all a little bit scarier because
there's no OSHA.
Look at the bungee. If you go into YouTube and search Victoria Falls bungee, which is where we did it, you can see a break and this girl falls in the river. So it's they just don't have the regulations, But no, so you're doing all these things together. And then we spend this time just connecting. We were having dinners and long drives and things like that. And so you build a deeper relationship in 6, 7, 8 days than you could get in 5 years.
No, I agree. I'm you're manufacturing truth.
Yeah. So the whole point of doing those adventure trips like we just did. So that was our 4th one. We did the tiger sharks in the Bahamas. I took 70 guys last summer to run with the bulls. And then I took 40 guys to Iceland. And I basically just took them to these amazing places I've been and that I loved and experienced. And then we just build these amazing friendships. And so every single guy in the group, it's really cool. Sometimes the stuff I'm teaching hits, sometimes it doesn't. They might be half of what Jimmy's teaching is bullshit. But at the end of the day, every single one of them has strong friendships. Every single one of them that they didn't have before this group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I feel adventure is so important in discovering who we
Especially
are.
for men, just get out and get a little dirty.
Well, when I took my boys to Kilimanjaro in February, I was like, you're not gonna be able to bullshit your way up this mountain. You're not gonna be able to you have to take the steps. You have to do the thing. And it was a safe enough environment for their ages to be challenging and just not overwhelming. And they came back with a different level of confidence. Yeah. Right? I can do hard things, and you need to put them in environments where they get to figure out how am I going to show up when things get hard?
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a crucial piece is just doing hard things. And, for some guys that's jumping off a cliff. For some people that's hiking a cliff or a mountain. For other people that's having a tough conversation with their wife. For other people it's getting in front of a group and talking about things that are vulnerable. But every time you do those things, you're right. It's a confidence thing because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can feel that feeling in my gut where I don't want to do this and I'm scared to do this, but I do it anyway. And every time you do that, you're exercising. It gets a little easier to do.
How are you expanding yourself then in those ways? You're helping facilitate for others, but you're always needing to stay a step ahead.
Yeah. So, again, I'm constantly doing things to push myself. So, it's for example, taking 25 people to Africa on that trip, I'm the one that's putting this whole thing together and managing it. That for me is a very difficult thing to do, right? So last year when I was working with Stefanos, one of the things that he said, hey, I want you to start going twice a week into nature by yourself without your phone and just sit for 2 hours.
Oh,
just do, yeah. And so if I'm being honest, I probably did it 10 times total. This year, my goal is to do that at least 18 times this summer.
So do you have to, I mean, like I could do it if I could walk.
No, you got to just sit.
You got to just
literally just sit there. Yeah. Oh, and it's the longest 2 hours of your life. But it is interesting because once the original, minutia in your mind kind of clears, you start to get some answers to some stuff. And I went for, he had me go, I rented a cabin in Sundance for 2 days just by myself and no phone, left my phone at my house. And I just went up by myself, no TV, just sat for 2 days and just had to just be. And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
I can only imagine.
It was interesting because...
Did you journal? So you could look back on it
So I
now?
journaled a lot. Yeah. And I, the writing, it'd be fun to go back and read that. And I had books I could read.
Okay.
I just couldn't have any kind of phone.
See, I used to distract myself in reading. Like, some people watch TV. I'm like, oh, TV's bad, so I'm going to read. I'm more noble and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize I did this artist way. Have you ever done that?
No.
So it's this 12-week journaling type program. And every day you have to write 3 pages. And when you start writing, it's like really hard. But then all of a sudden, like the faucet clears and things start flowing out. And they give you a journal prompt every day. And then every week you have to go on a date with yourself. Mm-hmm. You can do anything for like whatever. And then every week it kind of has a theme. And then one of the weeks was you're not allowed to have reading or TV or movies or any of that kind of stuff that fills in. I was like, oh my God, I thought I was such a high horse because I was reading and not watching television. I got called to the carpet and it was a hard week because you realize how many ways you can distract yourself and some of them are accepted by society. So am I really distracting myself? And when you take it away, you realize how much that was a crux and not looking in. Yeah.
In my book that you were referring to earlier in the podcast, I wrote one part, I said, the goal is not to feel better. The goal is to feel more. And like when you can get quiet, I'm not good at it yet, but I'm going to be good at it. It's funny. I meditate now for 20 minutes a day. And it took me 3 years before I could meditate for 7 minutes. My nervous system was so racked from my childhood and everything. Like it was such a noisy environment. Right. And now, so it's funny, this morning, I'm still jet lagged from Africa.
Right.
So this morning I woke up at 3:30 and I was wired. So I went to the gym at 4 and then I ran. And then I wanted to go grocery shopping and get some good food. So I had about a half-hour window before Walmart was the only thing opening at 6. I usually shop at Target, but it wasn't open until 7. So I'm like, whatever, I'll go to Walmart. So I literally pull into the parking lot of Walmart and I'm like, I'm going to meditate for my 25 minutes, And so I put my meditation on, but I'm also thinking like, I'm in a Walmart parking lot. It's a little weird, but nobody's going to be here and I'm 20 minutes in and sure as shit, some crazy lady starts knocking on my window. Scared the shit out of me,
I can only imagine because you're finally in
I was deep in. I was deep in and I opened the door, I rolled in the window and I'm like, and she's like hysterical and she's like just a typical Walmart person. And she's like, I need your help. I'm like, all right, what's going on? And she goes, I need a ride. I'm like, we're not doing that. What's going on? And I'm like, you're not getting in my car. But I'm like, well, what's up? And she's like, my friend got rushed to the hospital. And she's like, the cops won't let me use their phone. And I was like, okay, but are you okay? And she's like, the cops won't let me use it. Can I use your phone? I was like, no, we're not doing this. If the cops said no, I'm saying no. It's like, sorry. I like roll my window back up. And I'm like, all right, here's the true test. If I'm good at meditating, can I get back into this? And I was like, I had to keep an eye open. I'm like, this crazy lady's going to like try something. And so I couldn't get back. I had like 5 minutes left. But anyway, my point is.
Okay, so do you listen to a meditation or what's your meditation look like?
So because it was so hard for me to get it, sometimes I'll just sit.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah. Like I can do that. It's harder for sure. There's this YouTube that I learned. It's the first like 8 minutes. It's guided and it helps you just like completely get into a relaxed state. And then the rest of it, there's just some like music. It's kind of like almost like sound bowls. And it goes for like 15 minutes. But that's the one I use because it's the only one I ever got to like. So I've listened to the same one, 300 times.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the one I use.
Yeah, I know. I have this one by David Elliott, and he has a 21-minute meditation. And you just do like a certain breathing pattern, kind of like Wim Hof, but a little bit different. And some like the first 8 minutes is struggle bus. like so bad. I'm like, why am I doing this? There's so many things I'm doing. I'll be fine. And then somehow after that 8-minute mark, you get lost. And then sometimes I'll realize like that 20-minute goes like 21 minutes is gone. And it's just fascinating. But it takes a while. And then sometimes you'll get or tingly fingers because of the breath work, or they're tingly in your face. And that's just the nervous system going.
I think there's this new push. A lot of younger people are trying to go with no cell phones now. I think we're kind of catching on as a society how bad it is for us to never be bored, how bad it is for us to just have constant stimulation, right? I mean, you literally have 100 ways to stimulate yourself at all times with cell phones. Yes. Yeah. And so like, for me, it's just, it's working out occasionally without my phone. It's just not looking at my phone while I'm driving, right? It's not sleeping with my phone next to me. It's these little changes that can start to regulate your nervous system again. Because I think where we get in trouble is when we haven't regulated our nervous systems. Our inner child starts screaming and we don't know how to settle it down. And, we get somebody offends us or triggers us. And there's that moment between when we're stimulated and our response. And if you've gotten good at being able to regulate that, you don't make the mistake of lashing out or saying the wrong thing. And I know for me, every time I get in trouble or I say something I shouldn't have, it's when I don't have that regulation and I don't stop long enough to just go, Jimmy, don't say it, because I can go for the jugular every time, I said one the other day, I was like, gosh, damn it, Jimmy, be better. I said something I shouldn't have. And I was just like, why am I doing this still? But it's just part of just getting better all the time.
Yeah. What are other practices that you use to kind of keep yourself regulated and showing up the way you want to show up?
One of the best things I ever did. So I have a coaching program with these men, and with my leadership program, a lot of them, about half of them live in Utah.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't like doing one-on-one coaching from behind a desk. It's just not my thing.
Oh yeah. Do you walk with them? Right.
Yeah. So I had this great idea. I've been trying for years to get up by 7:00. I used to be a night owl. So it was like, I'd be up till 1 or 2 almost every night doing something. And so I said, Jimmy, all right, guys, you can schedule a call with me. So almost every single day, it's gone for over 2 years now. One of the guys I coach, different guy every day, will meet me at my door at 7 a.m. and we go for a walk for 40 minutes to start the day. And it's the best hack ever because it gets me out into nature immediately in the sun, gets me moving, and I'm having this conversation with a friend. And it's just a very open coaching conversation because we're walking together. And so that's one of my best hacks I ever learned, was that 7 a.m. walk every single day with a friend.
Is it hard to keep it at that 40-minute mark, or is it easy?
No, I mean, some days it's 30 minutes. Well, I know exactly the route could be 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So it depends. Like if it's super cold, sometimes we cut it 10 minutes short if it's like snowing and stuff on us or raining or something. But otherwise, it's usually almost the exact same.
And every day or just weekdays?
Weekdays.
Weekdays.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah. So it's one of the best hacks I've ever come up with. It's been a game changer to the point that like I got in such a good routine with it last summer, from about this time, April last year to basically through September, that like, I think there was a little bit of seasonal depression hit me this year that I wasn't able to do that. It was just such a great way to start my day every day, that not having the sun hit me in the morning, because then I would go right into my cold plunge too, and then I'd go into the rest of my morning routine and stuff. And
okay, so, wait, cold plunge. What is our morning routine here? You have a few things you're sliding out. So
yeah, but I don't like to give a full morning routine, because there's a couple things. Number one is, when I was building like my fortune, when I was building like my career, when I was building my business, I didn't have a morning routine. I just got up and went to work. So I'm hesitant.
A season for all
I don't think everybody should get up and do a 40-minute walk to start their day. Then I mean, like today, like I had a perfect morning routine because I was up at 3:30, but usually I give myself 3 hours each morning from 7 to 10. That's my morning routine.
Okay.
And I get up and go on that walk, and then I get back. I do like a stretching thing. I get on my treadmill. I do 30 minutes at 10 incline at 3 miles an hour. It's the fat burning zone. And that's my workout. Then I usually will take the cold plunge. This is when I'm like on my game, right? Yep. And then I shower. I cook a pretty healthy breakfast, probably some eggs or have some muscle egg or something. And then I read or study, journal a little bit, and then I'm ready to start the day. But I'm hesitant to even give that because it's, you should be, if you're on the come up, you should be in your office by 8. You should be working by 8. You should be on the phones by 8, like whatever that is. And so I always caveat that.
No, I remember when I got into I started in financial services. Showed up to my job the first day. I'm like, hi, I'm Jen. I'm the new financial advisor. And this lady walks me to a call center room. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not call center. I'm financial advisor. She's like, sweetheart, it's the same thing. I'm like, what? Oh my God. But I promised my parents I'd work at this job for a year, and telling my parents something different was not an option. I'd rather die. So I worked at that job for a year. Wow. And learned a ton, like we all do, in cold calling with phone books and all that fun stuff. But yeah, no, there is a season for being able to have the morning routine. Yeah. And some of them online, I'm like, that's a 5-hour morning routine.
Well, keep in mind, I'm trying to do less right now.
Yeah,
like I'm trying to pull back. So it's like, I have to do these things to slow me down, right? Yep. I'm, getting that 20-minute meditation in every morning. I'm getting in that walk in every morning, like doing those things. I'm trying to slow myself down.
No, I love that. And you mentioned earlier that Ed Milet was one of your mentors. I read his book, right? The Power of One More. Mm-hmm. And I read that book using it as the opposite. What's the power of one less? Because that's your one more. Jen is doing one less, and just understanding like who you are and what your genetic makeup is, and then taking those materials that you're reading and ingesting and like applying them so they actually work for you.
Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant. It's, again, I think all the best coaches, they've just found a different way to package the same information. If you read my stuff, it's not different than anybody else's, but I'm going to, so certain people will be able to recognize themselves in my story better. And so they'll just resonate better with what I do.
Yeah. Where do you see you in 5 years from now? Do you look out like that?
I do think it's important to have a 5-year vision of where you want to be. So my first question I ask people when they start coaching with me is, if everything were to go right in your life for the next 5 years, what would your life look like? Because it takes away the barriers of like needing it to work. No, it's going to work. What do you want it to look like? And if you can get clear on that, then you can start to reverse engineer it, and you can build a life you want. And I did that for 15 years and it worked. And I built this life. And the truth is right now, it's actually interesting. Coming into 2024, I was having the hardest year I've ever had at setting up my goals and my vision. Every other year was easy. I knew exactly what I wanted to accomplish. And this year I was kind of at this crossroads where I'm still kind of figuring it out. Like, how big do I want to take this thing that I'm doing? How bad do I want to be in the speaker, author, influencer space? There's days where I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. Yeah. And so I'm really just, my goal right now is to get clarity on all this, and it's working. Like, even going to Africa, I said I went 3 days early by myself, and I got a lot of clarity just walking around Mozambique by myself one night. I'm serious. Like, just some light bulbs were going off on some things I needed to do different as far as my business and my setup and all these kinds of things. And so I'm working on that, but I don't have a current, I think my hope is that, like, if I could freeze time and I get to do what I'm doing right now forever, I would. Yeah. But I also know if you're not growing, you're dying. You can't, unfortunately. And so,
well, and when you think about your real estate career, you didn't know this kind of career would evolve. Right. So now that you're into this kind of career, you don't know exactly other things.
I tell people to never go longer than 5 years, but I do think you should have a 5-year vision. And I mean, I'm trying to be honest here and say I'm having a hard time figuring that out right now. Mm-hmm. And so rather than just come up with something and BS with you, I'm working hard to try to get a new vision for what that's going to be.
Yeah. Part of that's the power that you have, and recognizing that whatever I set up is going to happen. And so what do I really want to create?
You got to be careful what you go after, Yeah, I always say, like, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Yeah. And every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to some other things. And so for me, it's like, no, what do you really want to do? And there's, of course, my buddy Sean, he's a coach too, and he asks this question all the time, says, what do you want? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to be doing? Why are you doing things that you absolutely despise? And I think if you can get honest about that question, it answers a lot of your questions for you.
Mm-hmm. And the best way to get there, as like you said earlier, silence, solitude, sitting, and not doing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fascinating. I love it. All right. Well, how do people who are listening to this podcast find you, connect with you, and learn more about all the stuff that you're sharing with the world?
Yeah. So I post everything through my Instagram. It's probably the best place to find me, Mr. Jimmy Rex. When I open my program, my leadership program, we open every 6 months. I'm opening it again here in May. So until that's full, it's filled up in one day every other time. So hopefully we can fill it pretty quick in a couple of days. But anytime I'm speaking at an event, like I got an event coming up, I'm going to be speaking out here. In fact, this weekend with, there'll be 10,000 people there and all those kinds of things. Anytime I have a podcast, have somebody like yourself on, I post it all on there. So my Instagram's the best place. That's where I post everything else I'm doing.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're awesome.